for a big part of my life, to some extent, I wasn't following my way. I was following the way that they wanted. I wanted to do things that would impress them. So I even went to university and studied something which I wasn't that interested in, but was their path. And as a result of not winning all the time, usually not winning, I do feel like a bit of a disappointment.
Right.
And I've had to come to terms with the fact that I am a disappointment to my parents.
Right.
My parents never taught me, or a word that they never used, and again, they gave me everything. I owe everything to them.
Of course.
A word they never used was being kind.
Right.
When I think about my second half, I want to, it's not about what I want to achieve.
Right.
I want to be kind. Kind was not part of their lexicon, their language. It was about achievement. So the first thing is to not be worried about being fired.
Hoy Miguel y yo conversamos con Rory Simpson, alguien con una historia de vida fascinante. Rory creció en una familia de científicos y exploradores en un entorno donde el logro y la excelencia eran parte del ADN. Desde pequeño entendió que el éxito era importante, pero con los años fue descubriendo que no era suficiente. Su trayectoria lo llevó de las soledades del Ártico a las aulas de IESE y London Business School y más tarde a ocupar posiciones de liderazgo en grandes corporaciones. Pero en el fondo su viaje ha sido uno mucho más profundo, el de dejar de vivir la vida que otros esperaban de él para empezar a vivir la suya. En esta charla hablamos de identidad, de autenticidad y propósito, de cómo reconciliar el éxito profesional con la fidelidad a uno mismo y también de la libertad que aparece cuando uno se atreve a parar, a soltar y a escuchar lo que la vida tiene para decir. La conversación será en inglés con subtítulos en español. Bienvenidos, esta es la historia de Rory.
Second Half. Conversaciones auténticas con líderes y profesionales destacados que se atreven a mirar hacia adentro. Creado por Horacio Hurtado y Miguel Gaulan.
Rory, welcome to Second Half. It's a real pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you, Horacio.
So Rory, I think I met you the first time 15 years ago, and one of the things that always caught my attention is your childhood. I mean, you have a nice experience when your first early years with a family. That sounds very interesting. So we'd like to hear more about that.
Okay, well, it's a very different childhood. I grew up in a normal middle-class family. My dad was a doctor, my mother was a writer. But when it came to the summer holidays, my neighbours in this middle-class neighbourhood in Glasgow in Scotland would go off to Mallorca or somewhere like that, and we would go to Greenland. And
where the Eskimos live, right?
Yeah, exactly, where the Eskimos or the Inuit live. And my father was doing these studies, and he would use as his guinea pigs his wife and children, studies of chronobiology, body rhythms, circadian rhythms. So we would spend, months, 3-4 months, living in an environment with Eskimos in a tent and traveling in the Arctic.
Right. So tell me more about that, because I guess that it was a good opportunity to spend time with your family and doing things. What do you do in the Arctic?
Well, apart from my father doing the experiments, we were also traveling. We were even exploring. My mother was a writer. So one summer we were exploring the impact of the Vikings in Greenland. The Vikings went to Greenland 1,000 years ago, and then they just disappeared.
Right.
Nobody knew what happened.
Yeah.
So we would actually investigate, almost in an archaeological way, what happened to the Vikings. That was the mission of one summer. Another summer, we would go to places that people had never been before, crossing over a glacier, canoeing down a fjord, doing a circumnavigation of an island in the ice.
Right.
There were always adventures.
Right. And at that time, I can imagine, because people will put focus on adventure. Some of the trips, you were 4 or 5 years old, you were in the middle of nowhere. But one day you tell us a story that what you enjoyed the most was the moment that rained or there were storms. Tell me more about that, because it's not obvious for me. Why would that be, a good moment for you?
Well, people, they always want to talk about the heroic adventures.
Right.
You crossed the ice cap,
right,
and you got close to the North Pole. And what were the adventures, what were the disasters and things like that. And for many years, of course, I would follow that desire and I would talk about those things. But when I truly reflected on myself, rather than the story that people wanted me to tell, and I would think, what was it that I really valued in those times? It was actually the time spent in the tent.
Wow.
So sometimes you couldn't go out for a day, for even a week. There might be a hurricane or a snowstorm, and you'd be in the tent. And I was the youngest of 4 children. So you're in a tent, you're camping. There's 6 people in this small tent. And spending all day, might seem like something that you'd suffer.
Right.
But what did it mean? It meant you would tell stories. It meant you had the attention of everybody. You're all living on top of each other. And I just remember, if I could hear the sound of rain or snow on the tent in the morning, it would mean we're staying in the tent. This is good news. So it wasn't about the adventure. It was about the special time with my big brothers, my sister, and my parents, and basically telling stories and being together.
So the family warmth of that moments were even more relevant than the big adventures that you get walking the cold, right?
The family warmth, exactly.
But in this family that you had, basically, with your mom was a writer, but also a very famous person in Britain, right? I mean, and your dad also a very smart person. But there was basically a kind of idea of performing there. No, performing was kind of relevant for your parents, right? So at some point, I guess you find yourself basically being 17, 18, and trying to go to university and start a bit of your career. How that worked for you? How was those years? How that performance, focus that you learned from your siblings and from your parents played for you?
So today we would say that it was a culture of pushiness. My parents were very pushy. I'm not blaming them. They came from a different generation. They lived through the war, the Second World War. But yeah, it was all about be first. Competition was important. Winning was important. Did you go up and present yourself? Did you say who you were? Did you tell them what you've done? Present, speak, be visible, win was very, very important.
Right.
And I believed, probably for the first half of my life, that those things were paramount. They were very, very important to me.
Right.
And as a result of not winning all the time, usually not winning, I do feel like a bit of a disappointment.
Right.
And I've had to come to terms with the fact that I am a disappointment to my parents.
Right. There was this story that you told me that I like a lot, which is being with your mother and your father. Particularly your mother would say that you were in Scotland, basically in a camp situation, and she woke up in the morning and said, "So what do we need now? Are we climbing the mountain? Are we basically doing this big trekking, basically, that must be special?" But it's all about achieving stuff. What we're achieving today. Is that something that resonates with you? I mean, that was...
Absolutely. I mean, it still resonates. My mother is 95 now. And every day there has to be some kind of achievement.
Right.
And of course, there's a good side to that. And then there's the negative side. There's the shadow side. But every single day, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? In my mother's house, there's often guests.
Right.
But you can't just be a guest in the house and then after breakfast go and read the newspaper. You have to... Where are you going to go? What's the name of the mountain you're going to climb? What are you going to achieve? How far are you going to go? What pace are you going to go? Are you going to get a record?
Right.
Which, of course, on the one side, that's good, but maybe we can reflect on the negative side of that at some point.
What could be the negative side? What is something? We'll come back later, but just to have a title now, what would be the negative side of that?
Well, the fact that you always have to move, you always have to keep moving, and you always have to achieve.
Right.
And maybe sometimes we should stop and smell the roses rather than just move on to the next thing.
Right.
Maybe a few years before my dad died, I did have the conversation with him. What are some of your regrets? And he actually had spent years in the Antarctic in his 20s. And he told me in those days it was all about records. It was all about sledging with his dog team and getting records and making maps and being the first person to sledge so far, in 100 days or how long to get 100 miles or whatever. And he told me this story that one time they heard this noise of whales breaking the ice because the ice had frozen over and they were breaking through the ice. And they went to see them but they then knew that they were going to lose their record.
Right.
And so they continued
Right.
for their record. And it was only on the last few days of my dad's life that he told me all those things about pushing an achievement, never be in too much of a rush to open your eyes and to appreciate what you have around you, even at the risk of not breaking the record.
Amazing.
So a whole life of message, he told me in his final few days, forget about all of that.
You mentioned something which for me is a very strong statement. You said something like, I was a disappointment to my parents, no? Which is a very strong and brave statement, I think. To a large extent, sometimes we try to not to disappoint our parents, and we try to fulfill their expectations, right? But what if that implies that we cannot be ourselves, right? And we have to replicate their lives and what they want, no? So to which extent it was challenging for you to find your own way?
So first of all, this idea of always, impressing my parents, it's not like I discovered 30, 40 years ago to stop doing that. I think I only stopped doing that a year or two ago. So for a big part of my life, to some extent, I wasn't following my way. I was following the way that they wanted. I wanted to do things that would impress them. And it was only very, very recently I realized whatever I do, I'm not going to impress them. If I become the president of a company, they won't be impressed. You should be the prime minister. If I become the prime minister, you should be Secretary General of the United Nations. If I'm Secretary General of the United Nations, you should get the Nobel Peace Prize. I'm never going to, it's a fool's errand. It's not something that, and so I suddenly realized, just stop. It's okay.
Right.
Be the disappointment. They will not be impressed. It's not my weakness, it's their weakness.
Right.
And they're not going to change. And it's okay.
Right.
You're a disappointment to someone else, right? That doesn't mean you're a disappointment to yourself, right? So
correct.
How do you not disappoint yourself, right? Perhaps that's a real question. No?
Right. And, the example of doing the things they wanted me to do, every generation of my family, there's been a doctor. And I was never going to be a doctor. I didn't have the grades. I wasn't interested in being a doctor. My dad said I had to be a scientist, though. So when I went to university, I wanted to study psychology. He said, that's not a science. It's old school. So I studied geology, which was a science.
Right.
That wasn't my passion, but it kind of fitted somehow with my life and my story. So I even went to university and studied something which I wasn't that interested in, but was their path. So I required sometimes you require a shock in life to wake up and start a new path. Right. And in that particular case, I followed their dream. I became a geologist. I ended up working in the north of Canada looking for gold, flying around in helicopters. Very much my life was situated in Canada doing these things. And I realized, we call it my life, but that was their life. It wasn't what I wanted to do.
Right.
And I woke up one day in a cabin alone, and I realized, I'm not going to do this anymore.
Right.
I got the degree, I got the job, but it was their desire for me, not my journey.
Right.
So that was a shock. It was shock therapy, which sometimes I think we need to start my life realizing I'm always going to disappoint them, but it's okay.
But there was also another story, because that really was insightful for you, because you shared with us many, many years ago, after this realization that you didn't want to be a geologist or followed, your expectation of your parents, and you went to this trip to South America.
I came home after leaving the job in Canada, and I decided I wanted to travel the world.
Right.
Of course, my parents said, well, you need to have a purpose. Where are you going to go? What mountains are you going to climb? I said, no, I'm going off traveling. I'm going with my best friend, and I'm not even going to contact you. Adios. I'm going to travel the world. Maybe I'll come back for Christmas in 2 or 3 years. Maybe I'll come back for a career. Maybe not. Maybe the rest of my life I'm just going to be traveling. So I went off down through South America. Actually, I did find some mountains to climb. I thought it was important somehow. I still felt it was important to climb these mountains.
Duality, yeah.
And we found ourselves, me and my best friend, crossing the border between Colombia and Ecuador. We were going to Ecuador to climb the volcanoes. And we decided not to take the normal route. We decided to go to the coast. And here was, two quite naive boys from Scotland on the Colombian-Ecuador border.
This is Colombia in the 90s,
This
right?
is Colombia in the 90s.
The security wasn't...
Precisely. And we're in a little canoe with a big guy without a shirt on and a machete, 4 other big guys in this canoe, me and my friend. And instead of taking us to Ecuador in this motorized canoe, they took us out to sea. And they took out their machetes and they started to hit us, to beat us. And they made us take off our clothes and they took all our things. And we suddenly thought, this is at least what we believed, we're going to die. Making a long story short, the boat moved a bit closer to the coast. And we both jumped out of the boat and we swam to the shore.
Right.
Then we found ourselves in the jungle on a beach. We had no clothes. We started walking south because I was away from the bad guys. And we started to talk to each other. After a while, we definitely had some kind of post-traumatic shock.
Right.
But what became very obvious very quickly, apart from needing water,
Right.
is we wanted to go home.
Right.
We wanted to go home for Christmas. This was October, November.
Right.
We suddenly also had this shock and it reorganized our priorities.
Right.
Not in a very sad, we weren't terrified.
Right.
We just discussed, we suddenly realized what was important
Right.
in life.
Right.
We wanted to tell our parents we were okay.
After that, I think you started a decade of trying to search for that success. And it wasn't over, no? That expectation is in your 30s. No? So tell us about that, how you were some way trying to be yourself, but chasing a bit of that reputation, that will look nice to the eyes of your parents.
I think in life we can see at first we're trying to impress our parents. Right. Then we take a lot of effort to impress the people around us.
Right.
Then we're trying to impress ourselves.
Right.
But
right.
yeah, through my 30s and 40s with my career, I would follow my career. I would think that success, I would think that happiness comes from success.
Right.
And that I'd think that success, once again, was winning, was becoming the top in my career,
Right.
was going to places. I found myself at the top of my little sector,
Right.
which was working in universities and business schools.
Right. Right.
So one of the biggest schools was London Business School. So I was the associate dean at London Business School, the head of executive education, meeting with prime ministers, CEOs, big CEOs of companies, CEO of Pepsi-Cola, Coca-Cola, Renault Nissan, conducting interviews, going out to dinner. And I kept telling myself, this is me, this is what I want, this is impressive. Even my mother will be impressed.
Right.
Now that I look back on it, again, it was a fool's errand.
Right.
It was a poisoned chalice.
Right.
It was probably the unhappiest time in my life because I was chasing the wrong sort of treasure.
And also there were moments where you felt not yourself at that moment. You were kind of in paper, achieving what you wanted, and successful, but there's something inside you that was being, in pain, basically.
I was chasing the wrong treasure. I was playing their game.
Right.
There's a lovely phrase in English that, this is a rat race.
Right.
My business might be a rat race.
Right.
It's even been glamorized. Oh, I'm in the rat race.
Right.
But I like the quote, the problem with the rat race is easy. Even if you win, you're still a rat.
Right.
So I was playing somebody else's game, and maybe that game is for somebody else. Maybe that is virtue for them.
Don't click there. What did it mean to play their game? What was it? What was their game so opposite to your game, basically?
Well, first of all, it was. I don't want to make their game bad because it's a different game. But I was trying to be more and more like them than more and more like myself.
Right.
It was a world of. Academia is very, very political.
Right.
So I was forced. No. I was trying to be good at their game,
right.
Machiavellical,
right.
two-faced, duplicitous,
right. Power games,
being more like them rather than being more like me.
Yeah.
And again, my parents never taught me or a word that they never used. And again, they gave me everything. I owe everything to them.
Of course.
A word they never used was being kind.
Right.
When I think about my second half,
Right.
I want to, it's not about what I want to achieve.
Right.
I want to be kind. Kind was not part of their lexicon, their language. It was about achievement. Well, I would like to, of course, I'd still like to win now and again, but I'd like to win through kindness, not through win by destroying the person next to me.
Right. So winning and finding those achievements, if it goes against your values, basically will get you to a difficult position. That would be...
Well, the word win, what are you winning? So again, are you going to win the rat race? You're still going to be a rat.
Right.
I would like to win by being kind.
Right.
I mean, it sounds rather, it's a Dalai Lama quote, it sounds rather cheesy, but, he says something about, it's not about success is the way to happiness. No, it's that happiness is the way, kindness is the way. So if I'm kind, guess what? I might win something else,
right,
far greater than winning the rat race.
Right. So be kind for you. It's a journey to fulfillment. What else is being you that will take you closer to fulfillment, to happiness, or to?
So understanding what I like,
right,
being honest with what I like. If I love going for a run and I love having a nice coffee after a run. So identify.
Right.
That is something I like, and it's not a guilty pleasure.
Right.
I think it's something I can talk about. My mother wouldn't understand that. So that's a small example of something like that, but that would also gives me space where I can think. And that I love this idea that in the second half of our life, appreciating that our brains work different, but all of our experience of the past, even though my brain might work a little bit slow, is something quite special.
Absolutely.
And I do like teaching if I honestly have something to offer. If my experience somehow is valuable, then I would like to share that. So I'd like to find the right place,
right,
the right platform to share that knowledge.
Right.
I don't know if it's wisdom, but other people might tell me it's wisdom.
It's interesting what you said about identifying what I like. No, I think it seems easy or obvious, but it's not at all. And when you are in the rat race, it's very easy to disconnect from what you are, from what you like, from where you flow, which has a lot of information about who you really are and the type of things that resonate with you. No, so. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a key in my view to really discover who you are, explore and be aware of the things that where you find joy, where you find pleasure, and there may be a lot of information. And oftentimes, those things don't have an obvious short-term utility and may seem like a waste of time in the right race or for people who want achievement.
Absolutely, and use this word explore. I mean, I feel like I haven't even started exploring yet.
Right.
I'm still exploring to find myself, and all of us can be exploring all of the time. Having a conversation like this, an intellectual, profound discussion, but also going to the pub and having a beer.
Absolutely.
We're also exploring.
And yeah, I like the way. The word exploring, there's a lot in the second half about exploring, right? And I guess sometimes we tend to try to find a solution, and probably that's a trap, right? That's a wrong way. You'll never find a solution. You'll never find the key for the second half. Perhaps the second half is about exploring and leveraging from your experience, from your knowledge, and on your wisdom. To really connect more with who you are. And perhaps it's just an exploration, an ongoing, timeless exploration. No?
Exactly, an ongoing, timeless exploration.
Rory, I'm enjoying this conversation a lot because we are unpacking things of the second half within your life story, which is amazing, you know. And I love what you said: exploration and trying to land. Talked about also taking care of yourself, finding what you love, contributing to what you're good about, and following your passion, but also making a sense of contribution, which is amazing. And I want to go back to a moment of truth, what I call it, because at some point you were exciting, winning your career, etc., and you decided to move back to Barcelona, possibly in your early 40s, and change, which is the moment where we met you, by the way, and change your life. So tell us about that. What brought you to Barcelona, and why that was important for you?
So one thing that you've actually helped me understand is that we do have these moments in life.
Right.
We have milestones, lots of milestones, but we also have these, whether you call them shock points or inflection points.
Right.
And yeah, I was in this so-called perfect career, the thing that I thought I always wanted, important, respected in London, but I was deeply unhappy. I mean, I didn't quite know it at the time. At the time, I was just a little bit unhappy, but when I look back on it, I was deeply unhappy. And I thought I had everything. You know, I was married, I had 2 kids. But I suddenly realized what was wrong was that I had a son from a previous relationship growing up in Barcelona. And it's very hard to admit, but in a way I'd left him.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we saw each other every 2 weeks, and there's a lot of logistics, but it's very different.
Right.
And I just realized that was more important than anything else. Of course, I still wanted to keep my family together, but we could go as a family back to Barcelona. It was in 2008. There wasn't any obvious jobs. We just had a global crisis, financial crash. But this was more important. This was a more important magnet pulling me than my career.
Tell us more about that, because I mean, my intuition tells me that you follow kind of your moral compass. You know, how did you felt with that decision? What was the feelings that you had? Because I'm sure it wasn't all roses. You know, what was it for you going back to Barcelona? So
actually, once again, once I'd made the decision, once I opened my eyes and I realized I wasn't playing the game I wanted to play where I wasn't being the person I wanted to be. And that I also had this idea of going back to Barcelona where my son was. It was very easy.
Right.
Once you have clarity like that, I was going to go back to Barcelona. I was convinced also that I would get a job, that the right job, you know, I had the confidence that things would play out. So once the decision was made, it was very easy to leave. By the way, for complete disclosure, before I left, they actually fired me. So I got fired.
Okay, so
I was standing on the ledge,
kind of
thinking about jumping, and they pushed me off. You know, hallelujah, fine. And I just wanted to say, I don't know if it was luck or a miracle or serendipity, but I moved to Barcelona, and then, sure enough, a miracle happened. The perfect job appeared in front of me.
That's amazing, because what a sense is once you make a choice that comes from your values, that is very important for you. Sometimes the universe, you know, try to help you. And I sense that you did have a bit of confidence there. You make that jump, but with the confidence that things will work out in some way or the other. Before the miracle of this job came, there was a trust in yourself that if you make the right choice, then things will work out well for you, for your family.
Yeah, perhaps if I may add on that, making a choice based on your values is what gives you confidence, no?
Exactly.
And I find those choices are really
exactly
powerful, even in an uncertain situation, but that gives you confidence and strength. No?
Was that your experience, or did you have confidence there? Or?
So first of all, people say that was a very brave decision. I honestly didn't feel brave at all. It was just obvious that this is what I had to do.
Right.
And back to what Horacio said, you know, when we make decisions for the right reasons, because of our values, these deep decisions, when we don't force something, we actually follow this, I don't know if it's divine path or karma or, you know, fate.
It's more consistent with yourself.
When you're consistent with yourself, guess what? Somehow the path reveals itself to you.
Exactly.
Because, 5 years before that, I'd forced my path to London. I needed to get this job at all costs. This was the greatest job. I need to pretend I'm self in my interview, pretend I'm somebody that I'm not. I need to talk about finance and all these things that I'm not good at and pretend I am good. So I'd forced the decision, I'd forced the path, and I was deeply unhappy. 5 years later, I let my conscience, my virtue, my values guide me.
Right.
And guess what? It was the right path.
Right.
And, Goethe said, be bold and mighty forces come to your aid. And I think that's a great example. If you do choose, whether you call it truth or whatever, suddenly the right path is actually easy. It's not brave.
It's interesting because there are decisions that are for the first half and decisions that are for the second half, right? So I guess probably your experience at LBS, where you were being who you're not, but you were working hard to achieve whatever things, was very important, very valuable, and perhaps needed to get to that point, right? So we're not saying do this, do whatever you feel like and follow your guts since you are 15, right? You need to walk through life, and there are things that are more pertinent to the first half, and other. You need to find the right timing for things. Huh?
Right.
It's not that LBS was bad for you; it was part of your journey, and probably was needed.
It was needed, and it was part of the journey.
That's what is fascinating, because there are no shortcuts. Learning one and learning two is be careful what you wish for, because you can achieve basically stuff within LBS by forcing. Basically, you can achieve stuff. Challenge is you're not sure if you have the right stuff, basically, because you also can detach yourself, and sometimes the universe work in your favor. And I don't want to fall into a new agey message, basically, but that did happen to you. Tell us more about that dream job, and how did you play your cards differently in within the learnings with LBS? How did you approach that job in a different way?
So first of all, I've always been naively optimistic. Actually through the whole story,
right.
I've been naively optimistic, and I've got used to people laughing at me for being so naive. And I just feel that we should always aim high and be optimistic, because even if you don't achieve it, you still achieve something. Suddenly I found myself in Barcelona without a job, and this beautiful company, Telefonica, came to me and said, guess what? We have a corporate university. Guess what? We have no one to run it. Guess what? You have an open book. You have a white page to construct. You can hire people. We want a place, of where people want to go. We want to transform the company. It's not just about doing courses. Every single thing that they said, I felt I could do that and more. And the most important thing was, it was all about being me and being more of what I'm good at. As opposed to the previous job, it was more about being somebody else. And I thought, well, I can do that. I can be me. And then I connected with the universe. I mean, I connected with you. I connected with all sorts of other people that I knew. And all they did was give me more ideas, more energy, more ammunition to make this work. And so we created a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the next 10, 15 years were, the happiest of my professional life.
Tell us more about what it meant to be you. Because, I mean, within yourself, within the organization, what was being Rory Simpson at Telefonica?
So Telefonica, like many companies, they wanted their people to grow. And so they wanted classes. They wanted classes aligned, of course, with typical business school metrics like finance and marketing, but also being authentic, leadership, kindness, again. So I thought, wait a minute, I'm going to be teaching the very things I'm trying to do myself. And then I would teach, and people would say, hey, that worked well. So again, it would reinforce these messages. So as I grew, also the people in the company, we were all growing together. But it requires a company which is very confident in itself.
Exactly.
Where they're happy with allowing people not to go to a corporate university and just learn about the corporate values, but actually learn about their individual values.
Exactly.
So it really took a very brave company to allow this experiment of life to happen.
We at work work on a daily basis with large corporations and large organizations, like you said. And my experience is that for many executives in those companies, it's actually not easy to feel like they can be themselves or purely themselves. From what I'm hearing, you had the right context, but what else was needed from your side in order to allow yourself to be yourself in a large corporation?
Look, it sounds rather self-serving, but I learned, first of all, and again, back to some of my near-death experiences, was the first thing is to not be worried about being fired.
Exactly.
So if you're truly talking about a company, if the CEO is talking about the need for psychological safety, then walk the talk. So I would do things where often you might get fired in a different company, and I would show that as an example to people that it's okay. And guess what? We made lots of mistakes. We had lots of experiments, but we always had a way to sort of learn from those things. And I do think it's been a sort of superpower, which we can all have. By the way, it's not a difficult superpower to have, but it's an important superpower to not worry too much about being fired. Now, I know that's very easy to say. People say, I've got a mortgage, I've got my kid, I'm not blind to the fact that we all have a different context, but it's always worked for me.
And being too worried about losing your job makes it very difficult to take any risks or try new things. Huh?
Yeah, so if the very company is talking about the importance of taking risks and learning from their mistakes, how could it be that you're not doing that yourself? I was what was called a chief learning officer. If the chief learning officer is not willing to do it, how can he or she expect anyone else in the company to do it?
But I love what you're saying, because it makes you reflect about the role of fear, right? You started making choices with less fear. I mean, you moved to Barcelona, no fear, basically, and you decided to take your job and started going to do this with a very little amount of fear, almost none. And that helped you thrive, because we witnessed that. I mean, you love to deliver classes, you deliver classes. You love to build things massive. You put 60,000 people in dialogues, basically, small group dialogues in 10 weeks. That was amazing. So you bring disruption all over the place. I remember people from the team in patinetes in the middle of the Tirto Se was a big corporate conservative, Spanish, and people are going around in patinetes, and you drive new ideas. But that you did without fear and being yourself, which is really, really amazing.
One of the greatest leadership messages I actually learned was from a professor at LBS. And he said, be yourself more with skill.
Right.
And they did all sorts of examples, of course, typical corporate examples like Richard Branson, have your own brand, but have people know what you stand for and do more of it.
Right.
And too much of what happens in companies is all this stuff about competency gaps. It's like, where are our weaknesses? Where are the gaps? Let's fill the gaps. And I'm a great believer that actually what makes the company great is knowing its strengths and the strengths of the individuals and having them be even better at what they're good at, rather than filling the gaps of ignorance.
Which is amazing, because in the transition to the second half is dealing with that fear while you're keeping the confidence, which is, I guess, the same thing about your skills and what you can contribute. And what I'm feeling from yourself is that you're putting now the focus on what you're going to bring to the table, rather than what you can get, or what's your risks, etc., which is a beautiful place to be in your second half. Which takes me to now, Rory. Now your life have basically helped you to have another white piece of paper, possibly the same Barcelona, the same after the trip in Colombia, and so many times that you're confronted to a white piece of paper. So tell us more about that. How you're feeling and where you're now in your lifeline, kind of.
So yeah, I recently left my corporate role.
Right.
And I'm definitely aware that I'm in another one of those moments. I'm trying to be very patient. So there's a lot of people in their 50s, in their late 50s, where they leave a corporate role. And I've seen a lot of mistakes that people make, where they might have felt that they were very important in their company, and they would have a PA, and they'd have a full agenda, and they'd be flying business class. And it was very important to stay busy. And they leave their role, and they keep trying to do that. They feel that importance and being needed actually is their purpose. And that they might go another 10 years doing those things, when actually
Right.
they're in what you just called the second half. We're in a different game now. So why are they playing the previous game?
Somehow, I mean, this provocative coach, I would say, being busy is being lazy, because you're not confronting, the big questions and doing what you really love. You start keeping yourself, being active, rather than having the non-laziness to confront some of the big questions of what you really love to do, which is where you are. Yeah.
So I cannot have a conversation with my mother or with my brother, who was, a 30-year important consultant, without, are you working on your CV?
Right.
Who are you speaking to? Have you done some interviews? What are you going to do? Very difficult to have those conversations, to tell them, look, it's not that I'm going to sit around and meditate for the next 30 years, but I do want to work out more of who am I.
Right.
I know people seem to like my classes, so I think I will continue to teach, but where and what should I be teaching? These are the sort of things I want to contemplate. Maybe I should be writing more. Maybe I won't be writing self-help books. Maybe I'll be writing fiction. Maybe I'll be writing poetry. Maybe I'll be writing my experiences.
Because what are the parts of yourself you want to bring to this second half B?
I'm so clear that there's other parts I've not even discovered yet, and I need to listen to the universe, at least for a few months or a year. And to do that, also put myself out of my comfort zone. I just came back from with a bunch of almost professional cyclists, cycling 1,000 kilometers through Portugal and in southern Spain. These were people, they're very, they're people that have achieved a lot, doctors, lawyers, judges even, whose whole world is cycling. Cycling was not my world, but I knew I was fit enough to do it. And just being in an environment, they have no idea what my career was. They don't even know what my company was. But you learn a lot being in that kind of environment where you're just known for your cycling and how much grit and determination and tenacity you have. You learn from these things.
Makes me think about this creative process that means basically to face your situation, choosing to have different experience, to enhance your creativity, find yourself, find what you want to do, and go and do it before jumping into
jumping. And all the answers are there. All the answers of what my next path should look like, they're around us, but we need to stop and listen.
Right.
It's like being mindful on a walk. Are you just going to focus on the destination, or are you going to notice the caterpillar on the tree?
Right. What does it mean, listening to the universe? What do you actually do in order to listen to the universe?
So I think, it sounds very profound but intangible, and actually there's some very specific things you can do. The first thing is put yourself out of your comfort zone. So as I said, I joined this club and I learned how to cycle, and I got fit and I went cycling.
So try to explore dimensions or areas which are new for you.
Which are completely new, but maybe somehow aligned. I knew I could cycle, so somehow aligned.
Yeah. There's an element of following your intuition there, listening to the intuition in terms of where to go, right?
Right.
It's not a ration. You didn't analyze 10 choices. I mean, you just felt like this was the right thing. I go for it.
Trying more and more to follow my intuition, actually, listening to my intuition. I've made so many mistakes in my life where if I'd listened to my intuition 10 minutes or 10 days before, I wouldn't have made the mistake.
Yeah.
Same way I tell companies, all the answers to your problems, your employees have the answers.
Right.
If you can facilitate the right discussion with your employees, maybe you don't need to spend the money on the very, very expensive consultants. So other things, I'm going to do a course on how to tile a floor with tiles. It only takes a couple of days. I'm going to be with a guy showing me how to do that because the tiles in my kitchen are all broken. And then I thought, well, I'm going to be able to tile. I'm going to be able to make my own kitchen. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not a DIY bricolaje kind of guy. But I'm sure I'm also going to learn something from the person, not just on telling tiles, but philosophy, perhaps. Getting out into the environment, of course, has always been important. That aligns with what I used to do as a child in Greenland. I want to spend more time in the mountains, walking, running in the mountains. So it's not just random acts, or then it's not all just random acts. They all align with who I am.
And it has a trend because it's keeping the question open, sustaining the question rather than finding answers while you're exploring new things, very much connecting to what you love and what you're passionate about, and resisting the tension to answer the question until you're ready, basically, to say, okay, right, now we're going to go this way, which is amazing. There's another thing that really inspired me, Rory, and makes you think about how amazing life is, which is suddenly you find the time to spend time with your mom, possibly when she's most needed, no? And tell us about that experience. That is not in the structure of a high-performing person that is defining what to do when he's 50-something. And suddenly you find that opportunity, which was very inspirational to me.
Look, a miracle happened. Again, I'd like to say miracles do happen if you let them happen.
Yeah.
So my mother's 95. She lives alone in Scotland on an island in the Highlands.
Right.
And she's 95, and we want to keep her at home.
Right.
But my siblings and I realize, we have to be there. So we're taking it in turns to go and be with her in her house. Right. So just at the time when my mother needs me, the miracle is just at the time when I have the ability to be there. So a week of every month, I fly to Scotland, not in business class, it's not like before.
Kind of, yeah.
So you're flying and you're getting the bus and you arrive in the dark and you walk to my mother's house and you're spending a week with a 95-year-old woman. And of course, she appreciates it. She expects it, actually.
Right.
But that's okay. and again, there's so much to learn.
Right.
Of course, she's very old and she's losing her mind and her memory. But there's still an awful lot to learn from someone who she knows who I am deep down. So she says a lot of very offensive things, actually, but also lots of things. They're difficult to swallow, but they're very true. So it's a miracle that I have this time with her. In 2 weeks I'll be going, late November in Scotland. It's not a nice time in the dark, in the rain.
Right.
And it's not exciting. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. We're having morning tea and we're talking to each other, and you have a whole day ahead of you of talking. There's a huge amount to learn from that.
Right. Do you feel that somehow helps you in to heal things from the past on your relationship with her, or you're over that already, and it's not a...
Yeah, I don't know if I'd use the word healing, but I'm very aware. We said before, I'm a disappointment to her. She loves me, but I'm the youngest child. I'm the disappointment. That's okay.
Right.
And, I go there thinking, I used to think I'm going to be able to get her to think about me in the correct way. It's not about that. It's about me think about me in the correct way.
Beautiful point.
I just want to emphasize how difficult it is, how extremely difficult it is, even when we are close to 60, to be a disappointment to our parents, and how brave it is and how necessary because being a disappointment to anyone else, it may result in being loyal to yourself and allowing yourself to be yourself. So when that someone else is your mother or your father, is really tough, but it's a brave and necessary, very necessary task that I think very, very few people are able to do.
Horacio, every time you speak, you make me so emotional. So, but because I also realize that the other learning is back to our own kids. That I'm just desperate that my kids, that they don't think that I think they're a disappointment. When, of course, I'm always pushing them. I find myself saying the same things to them that my parents...
You're being an example to them just by what you're doing, not by what you're telling, right? This what you're describing is the example to them.
Thank you.
So we're approaching to the end, Rory. So thank you. And I guess that there's always like a ritual for us, which is what do we get in this conversation. And since we're the three of us, maybe we can share the three of us what we get from this conversation, starting by you. And let you, Horacio, to close.
Look, my whole story actually ties perfectly with this conversation. I mean, what a privilege. When you invited me to do this, this is the perfect thing I could do right now.
Right.
And, we had a number of calls to prepare this. That started an extra level of rumination, of contemplation for me. Yeah. It also makes me realize, as you said, we met like 15 years ago. When I look back on what was my career up to now, when you're in the rat race, when you're in your career, you think you know what you want to achieve and what success is. And actually, now that it's over, that part of my career, success is something different. Success is not, did I have dinner with the CEO? Did I get promoted? It's the friendships that I made. And I mean that. And the friendships that we generated in those days, they will last well beyond the career.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rory. And likewise, for me, it's as a friend and a person that cares for you a lot, it's inspiration, because somehow I feel that you are a bit ahead on this reflecting process, and we created this with Horacio also with a learning purpose for ourselves. Basically, I want to really thrive on our second half, and be away of the rat race, and have another type of, not a race maybe. And thank you, because you bring in a sense of being yourself, basically, that is keeping myself asking, I'm being myself, how can I be more Miguel than before? So thank you.
Rory, thank you so much. Congratulations on your journey. I think it's very, very brave what you are doing, and very inspirational for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rory.